All right, in this little mini class, we're going to work on stepping up from down dog, so building core strength to get that step up a little smoother. Let's start in downward facing dog and have about 4 blocks handy. I'm using the 3-inch blocks instead of the 4-inch blocks, so they're a little lower. I've got those blocks right behind my forearms so that when I move into plank pose here in the next breath, those blocks are going to land right under my hips, and you can resituate your hands here. I'm going to walk my hands a little farther apart, and if you need to crawl forward a little bit, but bend your elbows just so your hips land, and then inhale, push into the blocks, lift your chest for a very mini little up dog, and exhale, push back downward facing dog. You can repeat that a few more times, and then I'm going to move on to show you the next little core engaging movement. In plank, squeeze your knee to your chest and tap the block with your toes. Press your foot back, downward facing dog. Lengthen your low back, take a breath here, and then on your next inhale, shift forward, knee to chest, tap toe on block, press back downward facing dog. And that's starting to get the belly and the psoas, the thigh muscles ready for the step through. Another breath in down dog just to recover. Stretch out your spine, stretch out your hamstrings, and then again, come forward into plank, knee to chest, round your spine, but then dip your knee down and up and over to the left and over to the right. So round your spine when you lift, lengthen your spine when you lower. So it's almost like cat-cow. I'm going to do that on the second side so you can see. And then if you want to pause the video and repeat that a few times just to get used to that movement. So I've got those 2 blocks end to end under my forearms. And when I come forward plank, pull left knee in. I'm rounded, and then I lift and I lengthen my chest when I lower. Lift the knee and tap over to the other block. Lift the knee, tap to the left. Lift the knee, tap to the right. So you can see when I lift the knee, there's a rounding. And when the knee lowers and taps, there's a lengthening in the spine. It's not quite an extension, but it definitely lengthens. 3-leg dog next. Right leg lifts. Then you're going to push into your left foot, lift your left heel, power your left thigh, pull your right knee through over the blocks and tap the floor. Sweep your right leg up and back. Inhale. Pull your knee into your chest. Again, power through with that left leg, round your spine. Now toe tap on the block. Up and back with your right leg. And then one more here, we're going to now step through. So if you need to come to your fingertips, but you got to round that spine and push the left heel up. Round the spine, push with your left leg. Once you get your right foot up to the top of your mat, let's take a break from being on the hands, take high lunge. You can take some wrist circles there. Now you got to get it back. This is actually harder than getting it forward. So pull, pull, pull. Really round your back out. So there's a massive rounding in the spine, which comes from a very deep core engagement. Left side, when you're ready, please pause and take a break if you need, or repeat that a few times on the right side before moving to the left. Knee tap on the floor in front of the block, and then up and back 3-leg dog. So remember, your right leg is really strong. It's pushing you through. Then your spine rounds by engaging your core. Now toe tap on the block. The spine rounds so your left knee has space to lift up. And now step over the block and really use that right leg to push your left leg forward. Get off your hands for a moment here. High lunge. And then when you're ready, hands back down, and you got to lift that left foot up. So if you catch the block, if you kick the block around, it's not a big deal. You can always keep trying. It's all good exercise. Downward facing dog. So you could try that a few more times and play with that step through, or you can move on. Chaturanga, exhale to your hips. Point your toes back this time, and then lift your hips forward so your thighs come to the blocks instead of your hips. Come back over to hands and knees. We'll take Anahatasana to recover from that. If you're still working on those knee pulls or blending them into your practice, you can pause here and maybe come back and meet us for a few restorative postures in a few minutes. In Anahatasana, my chest is laying on the blocks and my chin to the floor. stretching out the spine. That just worked a bunch. And keep your hips over your knees. Keep the press of your knees into the floor. Inhale, walk your hands back in. And then I'm going to take the blocks with me. I'm going to move into a reclining position. So grab those blocks, have them all four handy, or if you're using any other prop support, just have that close by so when you lie down, it's within reach. I'm going to start with one block under the sacrum. And again, I'm using these 3-inch blocks. So if you have a 4-inch block, you may only be using 2. I'm going to end up putting 3 blocks under my sacrum. So I'm going to grab that second block now. And I'm stacking these all on their shortest height. So the biggest amount of surface area is supporting my sacrum. And then a third block I'm going to put between my legs lengthwise. So the short ends of the block are on either thigh. And then the feet walk away from each other so you can let your femurs squeeze into the block. And then I am going to grab that fourth block and put it under my hips just to get a little bit higher in the back bend. So you choose which one, what height is better for you, if you want 1, 2, or 3 blocks. And again, it depends on the size of your blocks. So I've got a little nice stack going on here. And then I've got the other block between my thigh bones, letting my thigh bones rest on the block with the feet farther apart than the knees. This will help stretch the front of those thighs that just did all that pulling for you. And then let your shoulders kind of come in a little closer, almost like you're taking a supported bridge pose, rolling your armpits open a little bit more. That'll help stretch out your back. So if you're feeling any back pain here, use your shoulders for more support. I'm just breathing here for a few moments, allowing the weight of your legs to fall in on that block. And give your psoas a few moments to release. I'm going to move on to a quad stretch next. So I grab that block out from between the thigh bones. I'm going to pull my left toes under for a quad stretch. So you can just let this foot scoop under on a blanket, or if this is too intense, maybe even consider lowering one block out of there. But I'm going to use the block that was just between my thighs here in a moment. I'm going to stick it under my shin. So I just want there to be like a little door jamb, and more really rather a reference point. So something to push that shin into to lift the hip up and provide some lift. So that pushing down into the block with the left shin will open the front of the left thigh a little bit. And then again here, if you're feeling any sensitivity in your back, take your shoulders a little closer together and see if you can breathe here for just a few moments. Of course, at any time, if it does become too intense or becomes painful, definitely move out of it. And then you're ready, grab that block and you can switch it to the other side. So reach down with your right hand, pull your foot under. Try to avoid your knee pointing out too much, but if it needs to point out a little bit, that's fine. This is another really helpful tool. The block under your shin is a really helpful way to remind your knee not to point out too much. So if you can, get all of your 5 right toes to point straight back, and then put that block under your shin and give yourself something to push into to open the front of the right hip. Left foot on the floor is definitely part of your support, so it's definitely a foundational point. So connect to that for a moment. Feel the left foot pushing into the floor, not so much that it's going to push you over to the right or up to the ceiling, but do feel secure and grounded in that left foot. And just another breath or two here. You can remove the block when you're ready. But take your time to enjoy this stretch, especially if you feel like you overwork one side. Maybe you need to stay longer in that side. Once you get both feet to the floor, I'm going to just remove one block at a time. So one block comes out and then lower down. Actually, I'm going to keep these 2 blocks here for now. And then my other 2 blocks I'm going to take over for my hands. We're going to take legs up in the air, Viparit Karani. And with the legs coming up in the air, let the back of your sacrum rest fully on the blocks. So you might need to shift back a little bit or forward a little bit. I'm going to put these blocks under my hands, and you can play with them if you like them under a different part of your body. Nothing really felt good except for under my hands. I didn't like that. So play with it. You gotta explore things to see what you like. I will use these blocks here in just a moment because we're going to push up into plow pose, and having 2 extra blocks, one under each hand, is helpful to give yourself a little shift, a little push back into plow, because sometimes it's hard to get the momentum and without core strength. Of course, we're using this video to build up core strength. So if you're still building up that core strength, it might be hard to get back into plow. So push down into your hands on those blocks to give yourself an extra little assist back into Halasana plow pose. The weight in this posture, you want to keep pushing into your hands and your shoulders, not have your head or neck pushing into the floor. And you could lift your feet up here. They don't have to be on the floor. So your feet could be hovering. Your legs could be parallel to the floor. Another little helpful way to use these blocks is to take one up under each foot. And then maybe even the taller edge of the block, right? So, or 2 blocks under each foot. Or if you have a step stool at home, this is nice to use under your feet. And then the other 2 blocks behind me, I'm going to get and reposition those. They just are under my hands, just as those 2 blocks that I moved to my feet were. And then keep pressing into your hands for those extra 2 points of contact and support. And then roll down nice and slow. The cool thing about this is those 2 blocks under your hands are all set up and ready to go. So you can take the soles of your feet together once you get your hips down to the floor. Lower your feet down and then scooch those blocks out to support each thigh. Supta Baddha Konasana, supine bound angle. Feeling a little extra release here in the inner thighs. Again, it's those inner thighs and the psoas muscles that just pulled those knees into your chest to do that core work. Here you're giving them a nice release, a little rest. All right, take your knees together, and then we'll move this into a gentle twist. You can let your knees fall over to the left. Maybe that block under your right leg helps to support the hips a little bit. You can wrap your legs up or stack your legs on top of the other. Back up through center to the other side twist. Exhale into the twist. And use your inhale when you come out of it. And when you finish your twists, you can come up to a reclining position, constructive rest, any kind of a restful position. But end your practice, as always, with a bow to you. Tell yourself thank you. Good job, yogis.